Hello, nerds, dorks, and poors. Welcome to another edition of Uncle Guns. Join me this week as we talk about the Mauser 66. Post-World War II saw the dearmament of Germany, the split of the country in half between the Soviets and the Americans, and a lot of turmoil that then ensued, especially in their gun industry. Mauser, who at the early stages of the war produced lots of Gewehr 88s and 98s and tons of other semi-automatic and automatic weapons for the German army, definitely had a retraction in not only staff but designing and summarily the product that they were pumping out during wartime and after. We saw lots of things get taken off the shelf, but things also developed during that time that were unusual and not adopted in America or anywhere else in the world for that matter. Today we'll be looking at this model, the Mauser 66. The Mauser 66 is a bolt-action rifle on a short action, or a toggle or a telescoping action, as a lot of people talk about it. It's something that isn't really seen a whole lot in the gun world, especially in the United States. This particular version is the Safari version with a deluxe stock and a large recoil pad chambered in .338 Winchester Magnum. We will be shooting this later. It will hurt my shoulder. But where did this come from, and how did it develop, and what was it ever used for? Well, those questions are going to be answered shortly.
I'm so excited!
We first start with the Gewehr 88, which is the first of what I would consider the first commercial and military widely adopted across all both fields of purchase, so military and civilian use, will be this rifle, the Gewehr 88. Simple design. You have two front locking lugs and a third lug if you count the bolt handle. This was widely used during World War I and before. Beautiful design. Lots of innovation at that time with the box magazine and the Mannlicher style clips that it used. This was the top of technology back in the day. We'll talk about this rifle later. We then graduate during World War II, and just slightly before that, to a carbine, the K98, which is the most famous of Mausers, as it led through all of World War II and had a push round feed, controlled round feed bolt that would pick up each round and then summarily put those rounds directly into the chamber. This became very, very popular with hunting and sporting, especially dangerous game, as push round feed guns would sometimes lose their ammunition out of the magazine during transition of the bolt. This, however, will not do that. This was widely adopted by every major military power and was used for a long decades of technology. But post-World War II, most of the hunting scene was old K98 Mausers, and we imported a ton of these into the U.S. and sporterized a ton of them. This K98 design was also still made and used in Germany and all of the satellite countries touching between Germany and the Soviet Union. Which just brings us back to the next rifle and the subject of today's matter. This Mauser 66. The Mauser 66 uses a telescoping action, a short telescoping action. So you have a short bolt that you would use for intermediate cartridges, but you could chamber Magnum cartridges because of the way that this whole lug here toggles back, giving you twice the room and keeping the bolt just as tiny as possible. So it's basically a innovation that was the K98 come together with modern technology and modern types of engineering, shortening the action, providing a very, very robust and tough gun. This was marketed to dangerous game sportsmen. It has a slide toggle safety, and it has a beautiful, beautiful trigger that has to do with the fact that there's not a lot of clunky parts in this. It's just very, very simple, very, very smooth. It's even probably slightly simpler than the K98 as far as safety function goes, and the magazine, how the magazine works. There's no stop to this magazine. There's just simply feeding rounds very quickly into the gun. You can see that the receiver was very similar to a Gewehr 41, which was a semi-automatic rifle, but they blended the two, the 98 and the 41 actions together. We see some of this actually translate into some modern rifles, the Sig Cross and the Q Fix. These were obvious adaptations of this rifle and of the way that the action works. They shortened up the throw of the bolt and did some more modern things, but definitely not an original idea. The Germans came up with it first. Then Mauser took parts of that, put it into their straight pull bolt action rifle, and then summarily some of the new manufacturers that have new product out there. But this is something that unfortunately got blown to the side in the ash heap of post-war development in Germany. It's a shame because it is a beautiful action, and when you can find these rifles, they typically demand a premium just because they're few and far between, especially here in North America. The other thing that I would say about this is that during the '72 Olympic crisis, where the German police had to respond to the terrorist activities of Hamas and the Palestinians, they were looking at, shortly after, for a bolt action rifle that they could use that was super accurate, that would be super robust, and something that they could deploy, relatively easily, but was also in current production. So this gun started production in 1966, as the model describes, but then it is transformed after the 1972 Olympics and becomes a 66S with a humongous stock. A lot of these stocks are much heavier duty due to the design of the firearm to not have necessarily bedding or have any kind of polymer stock. They needed something that was big and heavy that could remain on zero with several rounds shot through it, or the changing temperatures, humidity, any of those adverse effects. So when you see the 66S version of these, way more expensive, humongous stock, but essentially the same rifle underneath. This gun also has a mono rail system for the sights. This was, again, kind of new modern technology back then. This definitely creates a very isolated scope mounting system so that your scope isn't interfering with the vibration through the barrel. You don't have a lot of landscape here. It's kind of difficult to mount a scope in the traditional way with bases and rings. Because half of the receiver articulate, it moves, it's telescopes. You can't put anything on the back of the receiver like you would traditionally. So it all has to be forward, it all has to be scout mounted, if you would. But they do an excellent job with the way that the scope rings end here. The bolt, it doesn't interfere, it doesn't come up and hit anything critical on the scope. It's a brilliant design. It's really, really well executed. Now, the other thing too about this gun is that you can actually interchange these barrels. So if you wanted to have some heavyweight caliber like 338 Win Mag, you could, or if you wanted to downgrade it to 308 like most of those 66 rifles were, you could. You didn't need to have any kind of gunsmithing or head spacing tools or a guy that knew how to do that. You just had to simply, you know, go through the armor course to know how to take this gun apart. One other interesting feature of this is something that is rather strange, and this carries over to the 66 style rifles as well. The box magazine, it only holds 3 shells and is internal to the gun as opposed to a drop magazine. You can see that the trigger mechanism and the receiver all kind of fit right on top of each other. So there's no space in between that they can, you know, make a drop magazine or anything like that. So it's all internal box. It's a very simple design, and it's very, very well executed.
Brilliant, vivid, something made of music and fire.
So let's break down the Mauser 66. It's a relatively easy breakdown. We've just got simply the bolt. You pull that to the rear. There's a little lever right here that is just the bolt stop. It pulls down, and then the bolt just comes right out of the back of the receiver there. And the top end of the receiver is a dust cover, whatever you want to call it. It's super simple. It's, you know, very reminiscent of the Gewehr semi-auto rifles that were in World War II. Crossbolt safety, again, super simple design, a little bit of a nicer modification from the K series, but it's a K series bolt. I mean, this is all just very, very simple stuff. The way that it cocks on close is the leverage here against this paddle, just against the receiver, or cock on open, I'm sorry. And it's got the two forward lugs. Simple design. Really, really rugged though. I mean, big chunk of steel here on the receiver. The magazine is internal box. It's controlled round feed. You've got this really aggressive ramp because you basically don't have any space between the chamber and the front end of the magazine as the bullets are loading. It just goes, you know, right in. And so it makes it very reliable in feeding. Super steep, super polished. You've got very minimal parts here. You know, even the 700's got more parts in the action than this thing does. So we've got an interesting problem though. On the back end of the receiver, you don't have any place to mount a scope. So the engineers decided that you'd come forward on the receiver, and that would be your rear mounting point, and then onto the barrel, actually bolts underneath of the barrel, so it's fixed underneath there. And then you have this monorail scope mount that has two bolts in the rear and one clamp up front, so you could actually adjust this if you wanted a more scout type scope. So it makes it, the eye relief on this gun is really kind of interesting in the way that you can mount basically your scope anywhere that you want. You can move this forward, you can move those back or forward. So you could make it a scout mount, or you could make it a more traditional, you know, rifle mount at that point. So just a beautiful, beautiful design. And we'll get a close-up again of that bolt carrier. It's just, you know, a hood and the bolt. There's like nothing to this. So it's a nice little breakdown. We'll try to put it back together here without too much of a fuss. You do have to get the bolt slid to the rear so that the two channels can engage, and then once you come up to the bolt stop or the hood stop, however you want to see that, it just slides in, bolt slides in, it's done.
Well, that's easy enough.
So I thought that loading this would kind of be a bear. It's really not that bad. The shells fit down in the magazine very easily, even with the scope right on top. I just threw this cheap scope on top of it, what I had in the shop. But 338 Win Mag, it's no slouch cartridge for sure. That's 225 grain bullets. There's 4 of those, with one what you would consider ghost load, I guess, into the chamber. Oh, nope. So 3. 3 in here. So 3 rounds in this. Some of the other calibers are 4, but I thought it was 4. There's only 3. So I'll shoot a couple rounds downrange. We're just short range at this point. But I've never shot this gun before, so I have no idea what to expect. But it's such a cool action. So just turn off the crossbolt safety, and you're ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna stand as I shoot this. That's what a safari, you're supposed to be standing or kneeling as you shoot. So here we go. Wow. This is the second take on this. My sister behind the camera decided to squeal the first time I shot this. It is a fairly potent cartridge, and I do like how this shoots. It's very soft, especially for the cartridge that we're shooting today. So I didn't bench this rifle before we shot it. I just simply threw the scope on, super cheap scope. I mechanically bore sighted it, which is cool because the back end will come off and whatnot. And this was 6 shots, and I know it's only 25 yards, but rapid fire, so as quickly as I possibly could. Don't mind that one little guy over there. Forget about that little guy.
Oh, that little guy. I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
So yeah, that's awesome. I love this gun. So I'm in love with it. I shouldn't shoot stuff like this because then I want to keep it. So, but this will be available for sale at the shop. It's a great rifle. It's awesome for somebody's collection.
I gotta get me one of those.
Thank you for joining me this week as we talk about this beautiful piece of artwork, engineering and design, the Mauser 66. Go and comment below, like, subscribe, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those social media projects, and also the YouTube. If you want to see this gun in person, come to the shop, or go online to our online store and buy it directly from there. Thanks for joining me this week.